5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's time to count down the top 5. Brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
And today's episode of Top 5 is going to be JBL's Top 5 Most Underrated Big Men. This is a topic that a lot of people have talked about for a long time. Who are the best big men? We're going to get to the bottom of it right now. Coming in at number 5, you've got a tie here. Vader and Mark Henry. And you wrote two absolute monsters who don't get the full credit they deserve. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that we're not talking about giants here. So we're taking out Big Show. We're talking about Andre. We're taking out Giant Baba. So we're taking out the giants that come along. We're talking about just what we'd call the big men. And I think these are the two of the best, certainly of all time. Certainly that's why they're in the top 5. Vader was unbelievable how good he was. The matches he had with Sting in the early 90s were just incredible. The matches he had in Japan. I mean, Vader was just different. Brad Ryan trained me and trained Leon also. And when Leon came there to Brad said, "What can you do that's impressive?" Leon walked around his dojo there on his hands. Literally, this 400-pound man was walking around on his hands. I mean, Vader was an incredible athlete. He's a former top draft pick in the NFL. Vader was an unbelievable great big man. By the time he got to WWE, he wasn't the same. He had lost a bit of a step. He wished WWE had got him in the early 90s. Mark Henry's the same. I mean, there's people that will tell you that Mark Henry, and I'm in this camp, that Mark Henry could be the strongest man of all time. Literally of all time. Stronger than Louis Sears, stronger than Kazmaier, stronger than every single person that ever has walked on this planet. And Mark, it took him a little while to get it, but when he got it, Mark was fantastic. I mean, I remember Mark and I joke about it. We were working with Mark and D'Lo on the road, and Lanza told us, he goes, "Hey, they really want to use Mark, so could you guys, help get him in shape?" So we're keeping him in there, just kind of running, doing stuff. And I went to run his head in the stairs. I didn't know Mark hadn't done it. Mark hadn't really been trained that much. Ran his own head in the stairs, busted himself open, and he's bloody and all laid down. And I come back in. Ron said, "What happened to Mark?" I said, "I think he's dead." He goes, "Better get D'Lo in." So that was Mark. Mark has such a good attitude. He really did. And there was, he had a little bit of an adjustment when he first came in, and once he did, went up to Canada, worked with the Hearts, and Mark became a terrific big man. I mean, Vader and Mark Henry were two of the greatest big men of all time.
There's no doubt these are incredible in-ring performers with a huge legacy. I have to admit, I didn't get to spend a lot of time in real life with Vader, but Mark Henry is terrific. I have a great time with him every time. I don't know how you could see Mark Henry and not just smile. He always has a smile on his face. One of the nicest guys you could meet in wrestling. But Vader is a real guilty pleasure of mine. He's got to be on everybody's top 5 list. Coming in at your number 4 on JBL's Top 5 Most Underrated Big Men, Bruiser Brody. And this is not a name that's all that well known to younger fans, but man, if you watch old tape on this guy, and that's the only way I got to enjoy him, he was something else. Tell us why Brody comes in at number 4, John.
Yeah, Brody was just constant action. He and Stan were, what a great team they were, but Brody was just a solid action. And Brody was a big guy, smart guy. He's a former staff writer at the Fort Worth Star Telegram, I believe it was. He was a sports writer. And Brody was a very cerebral guy, very smart guy. He built this character himself. I mean, this was an orchestrated character. People said, "Oh, Brody's just crazy," and all this stuff. No, Brody orchestrated this character, much like Abdullah came along and said, "I'm going to build this character that's crazier than most." Brody built this frenetic character that never stopped. That was, people thought was crazy, people thought was wild, and it may have been. It may have been more crazy than what Brody would care to admit. But man, Brody was. Man, he was just a terrific talent.
Well, there's no doubt about that. And you want to talk about an innovator and an influencer. I mean, how many guys have patterned part of their presentation after Bruiser Brody?
Yeah, a lot of have, and all of them have fallen short, by the way, not even close. Brody he was a terrific worker. and he could move. I mean, Brody was a great athlete. A lot of guys just kind of get the hair like him, the beard like him, and think they can move their eyes like him. Brody had the whole package. I mean, Brody was a guy that could go and could go with anybody. He was a very tough guy, for one, but two, he could go. And Brody was a huge, big man. And most people that have, tried to emulate Brody just kind of have hair like him and beard like him and eyes like him, but they forget that everything from the shoulders down, Brody was a freaking stud. And these guys who've tried to imitate him, not a very good job.
Coming in at number 3 on JBL's top 5 list of most underrated big men. No surprise here. Stan Hansen comes in at number 3 on the list. And I've heard you quoted once as saying, Stan Hansen didn't work stiff. The world just wasn't tough enough to handle him. What a great quote that is.
That's exactly right. And Stan didn't care getting hit back. Brody didn't either. When you work like that, the problem is if you don't like to get hit back. Stan didn't care. Stan didn't care getting hit. He didn't matter. He and Brody, when they came out, I mean, look at this guy, man. When they came out, you had to see it in person to believe it. I mean, there's nothing like sitting in Budokan and seeing Stan come out romping and stomping and realizing he's coming after you. But seeing it in person, it was unbelievable. Never got to see Brody in person, but I'd love to have. But you see the tapes of it. It's very similar. He and Stan, man, one of the greatest tag teams, if not the greatest of all time, if they had stayed together. But they were so valuable as singles wrestlers, they couldn't leave them together. And plus, Brody was constantly negotiating and going to different territories. But to see Stan come out and that entrance explode and Stan freaking that cowbell all over the freaking place, beating people up, man, there was nothing like it, man. These guys lit up arenas and they drew a ton of money. That's why they're in the top 5 for me.
Unbelievable list so far, but coming in at number 2 is going to be a somewhat controversial pick with some of our listeners. You've got on number 2 on your underrated list of great big men, Kane. Why does Kane come in at number 2 here?
Because he deserves to be number 2, in my opinion. I mean, there's nothing that Glenn can't do. Glenn, obviously, you've found out, all kinds of things about him. He's a very smart guy, but Glenn's incredibly talented. Glenn could do anything. I mean, Glenn could do comedy. He did it very well. The stuff he did with Daniel Bryan was fantastic. He could do hardcore stuff. He could also wrestle. I mean, Glenn carried a lot of matches for a 10, 15-year period on top in WWE that was just remarkable. I don't know anybody else that can have that run. I heard a Undertaker doing a podcast said, what would you build one territory on? And he said, I'd build it on Glenn Jacobs. And I agree with that. I think Glenn is that freaking good. Glenn's a guy you want in a locker room, but Glenn is a guy you want performing on your card.
I got to admit, it's hard for me to wrap my head around underrated. Like, I feel like he should be in every wrestling Hall of Fame for all the reasons you listed. I mean, the longevity, the perseverance, the ability to make it work as a single, as a tag, as a baby, as a heel, with a mask, without a mask, serious, comedy, everywhere in between. Feels like he did it all, but maybe you're right. Maybe some of his political affiliations does make him underrated because it does feel like he's excluded from some of those conversations. But when I think of big man Kane, when it comes to WWE, he's got to be near the top of the list.
Yeah, I think so. And I think not just the political affiliations, but seeing him without the gimmick on, seeing him, talking, he's a very cerebral guy. Glenn's a very smart guy. He's very much a student of history, especially economic history. He can lecture you on Keynesian models and all kinds of crazy things, that smart people are able to lecture people on. So when you see that, it takes you away from this monster that he was, this character that he played. And I think that is a lot of things has hurt his legacy, not necessarily his views, but the fact that you see him and you think, okay, you're more associated with this guy who's just a really smart guy than this monster that was out there that was just incredible big guy. Fortunately for the world, they're both.
Coming in at number 1 on JBL's top 5 list of the most underrated big men, The Undertaker. Oh, you got some explaining to do here. Who the hell is underrating the Undertaker? How's he come in at number one?
But you talk about the greatest big men of all time. He's not on everybody's list. It's crazy to me. He's 6'8", 6'10", whatever he is. He's 320, 330 pounds when he's at his peak. And you sit there and look at it, and then people want to bring up all kinds of different guys and ahead of Undertaker. I don't think there's anybody in the history of the business, especially when you're talking about big men, that belong ahead of Undertaker. I mean, he's done absolutely everything. He was the guy that got guys through matches. He was the guy who had put out there with shitty gimmicks that couldn't get over. He said, "Oh, Taker can do it." He was the guy who had to be a barometer for guys who come in the 90s, see if this guy can work or not. He got put out there with them. But then he also was expected to draw crowds, and he did it everywhere he's been. Mr. WrestleMania, the streak, there's so much about him. He's still, this day, when he walks out there, people go nuts. The greatest big man in the history of the business.
Well, there you go. There's JBL's top 5 greatest big men or most underrated big men. We want to hear from you in the comments. Who do you think should be in the top 5 of most underrated big men? Who are your top 5 most underrated big men? Let us know in the comments. And I did want to run through some honorable mentions, John. You always want to make sure everybody gets their flowers. Otto Wanz gets on your list. He's the Austrian powerhouse, and he brought a lot of credibility to European wrestling, but why is he an honorable mention?
Hey, Otto they told me he had the world record for breaking phone books in half. I don't know if that's true or not, but I saw Otto just rip these massive phone books in half. Otto was a super tough guy, but let me tell you how over Otto was. So we were going down to, I think, Ljubljana. We're going from Vienna, I believe it was, not Graz. We were going from Vienna, I think. Maybe we've been going from Graz down to, I think it's Slovenia, the former Yugoslavia. Just south of that was Croatia, where the war was still going all the time. Otto forgot his passport. So Otto's going basically toward a war zone. He calls up ahead. He goes, "This is Otto Wanz. I forgot my passport." They're going, "Oh, Otto, it'd be great to see you." Otto got into another country without his passport. He was so freaking over. He got down there. Everybody wanted to take pictures with him. He came back through from the other side. Same thing. He's like, "Oh, my God, it's Otto." He goes, "I don't have my passport." Like, "Oh, don't worry about it, Otto. It's not a big deal." Otto grew up with Arnold Schwarzenegger in Graz. Arnold was, except for Arnold, the biggest star in Austria. I don't think it's even close. I mean, Otto drew huge crowds. He became AWA champion. That was kind of more like, similar to how Baba got it from Jack Briscoe for a while. Just kind of wanted to be champion for a while, a little favor. But Otto was a massive draw in Europe and a terrific big man. He called a spot one time to Vader, "Break my nose." That was the spot he called, and Vader broke his nose. Otto was a tough guy. But, man, he was over like crazy.
Break my nose is the greatest to call in the history of wrestling.
Yeah, he told Vader, "Break my nose." And Vader just open hand palm struck him right in the nose. It's all on tape.
Let's talk about Don Leo Jonathan. Decades ahead of his time is what you wrote. I'll admit, I need to learn some more. Drop some knowledge on me here, John.
Yeah, the giant Mormon. His second generation. His dad was a brother Jonathan, I believe, or whatever it was. Don Leo Jonathan. Yeah, he was a terrific draw in Canada. He's from Utah, and went up to Canada. One of Andre's favorite guys. But he was a drop kick specialist. He was like 6'10" and whatever he weighed. He was a huge man. He was a bodybuilder and becomes this wrestler. And just would throw drop kick after drop kick. Famous match with him and the Destroyer throwing drop kicks. He used to do it in Japan all the time. I mean, it was unbelievable. Knocked the referee out with a drop kick one time by mistake. Caught him right on the button. A terrific talent, a terrific athlete. But, man, he was a huge draw. Let's talk about giants. He is so overlooked by so many people. But in Canada, especially in Toronto area, that man was a massive draw everywhere he went. A great wrestler and apparently a terrific human being.
Yokozuna, probably no surprise that he is on your honorable mention list. I mean, one of the biggest competitors in the history of WWE. Why does he make your list?
Because he could work. I mean, Yoko could just flat work. I mean, Yoko, I'd sit there watching him in the dressing room rapping. And he was a very entertaining guy, just all around. But he could work. And he could have matches with anybody. Taker loved having matches with him because Yoko especially after he had to deal with Giant Gonzalez. All of a sudden he gets Yoko, a guy that can work. Yoko was a terrific worker, big, tough guy, but he could do anything. Yoko could talk, but they didn't have him talking because he was always in, some character where you had a manager, a mouthpiece talking for him or something. But Yoko was a terrific big guy that could move. Even when he got to 600-700 pounds, he could still move.
Let's talk a little bit about the last one on the last name on your underrated list, and I'm tickled to see it. Kevin Nash makes your honorable mention list. Why do you think so many people are down on Kevin? What do you see that they don't see?
Kevin changed the business. Absolutely changed the business. This whole business is different because of Kevin. I don't know how else you could put a guy's legacy in there that's any more important than a guy that would change the business. When he went to WCW, that's what started the Monday Night Wars. That's what started guaranteed contracts. Everything we have right now, Kevin was a huge part of it. Plus, Kevin was a good worker. People want to bash Kevin for not being able to work or whatever it is. So I call bullshit on that. Kevin could work, and we were there in 95. We had a great roster. It's hard when you're not drawing to be champion. They had him be champion when you're not drawing. It wasn't because Kevin couldn't draw. We had a great roster that didn't draw. Kevin drew massive ratings in WCW, so it obviously wasn't him. It wasn't any of the guys on our roster either. It was just a bad time in our business. I thought Kevin was great. And he's a very smart guy. I enjoy doing shows with him. I enjoy listening to him. But Kevin changed the business, and that if you can say this person changed the business, then they've got to be on your top list wherever that list is.
Well, there you go. That's John's list of the top 5 most underrated big men. Let us know in the comments below who makes your list of the top 5 most underrated big men in history. Power, presence, respect. These Giants didn't just work. They ruled.